Good morning. It is Monday morning, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and I am Ann Brennan. I'm the host of Small Business Connections. We're the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Our goal every episode is to give you something you can walk away with and put to work in your business. Small business owners are busy and we're also lonely, and it's really hard to always have the information we need. So I've gathered people. We're on guest number 98 this time. I've gathered people who have information. They are either small business owners themselves, they've been small business owners, they support small business owners, they are businesses that support small business owners, and they have information that is helpful to you. We live stream this event. I tell you that because while we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can ask questions and you can leave them in the comments. They'll show up on my screen and I can put you on as far as the question goes, and we can answer it right here live. So if you have a question about any of the episodes we have, any of the topics we have, please ask them. You've got experts here who can answer for you. I do we had burgers and virtual this weekend, burgersandbands.org. We raised just over $2,500. I'm hoping we raise more over the next few weeks as the year comes to an end, because we're doing a lot of good stuff over at Burgers and Bands for suicide prevention. We're doing a lot of things for your community. We're doing a lot of things to spread the message that you are not alone if you're struggling with depression or anxiety. And these days, you are certainly not alone. It is really, we're seeing it everywhere. So it's so important that you're taking care of yourself and that you understand you can say to anybody, hey, I'm struggling, and they are probably struggling as well. So please do feel free to call burgersandbands.org, find out more about how you can get some help. Call 911 if you're in real trouble, and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is a great resource for you. All right, let's get started with our show. We have Pamela Vines this morning. Hi, Pamela. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. So tell us a little bit. You are our first person on the show in public relations. So tell us a little bit about your company, and then what is public relations?
All right. Well, my company is Troop Public Relations, and we do a mixture of things. It's a public relations firm established back in 2014, and we are a PR firm that we also specialize in video production. So we do a little bit of both. We help you craft those messages and then send them out to the world.
That's great. Well, and I think for public relations, people think newsletters, right? And that's what they think. Oh, not newsletters. They think, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. They think that's newspapers. Let's get in the newspapers. Let's get in the news. And it's like, there's so much more to it than that, right?
Absolutely. So public relations is everything. With PR, you cannot fail, and without it, you can't succeed. And of course, I'm paraphrasing that famous quote by Abraham Lincoln, and he uses public sentiment, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's what your people, your individuals think, what the publics, what society thinks all about your products or your services. So public relations, and let me get into the actual formal definition by the Public Relations Society of America is public relations is it's a management function, and that means that everybody should be involved within the company. It's not just that one little young person in the corner handling social.
Right.
But so public relations is a management function that establishes and maintains mutually beneficial relationships among publics. So that's
there you go.
Overall official definition for what PR is. But yes,
right.
Relations is it's a microcosm. It's the umbrella for which all of the other elements maintain within PR. That is all the other branding and advertising and marketing.
Right. Well, so actually, I was just thinking a really great way to work on your public relations is to have a cause that you care about, right? So if you think about these small businesses who support Burgers and Bands, or who support the local, especially if you're a really small business, who support the local high school's drama program or whatever it is, that's a way of you getting out in the public so people go, oh yeah, I remember that company. They've supported my child, or they've supported my cause. That's a small form of public relations.
It is, and that is almost on the cusp of branding.
Yes.
Establishing what your culture is and what your company believes and values. But yes,
Exactly. Well, let's talk about that. Let's go through the
okay.
difference. What is the difference between PR, marketing, advertising, and branding?
So if I may, I like to use a little analogy. So about watermelons. So
Okay.
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in a small little town, and we weren't around any farmland, for instance, but every summer there would be a man that we reverenced him because he would pull up in his truck, and it was an old beat up pickup truck with the wooden slats on the sides, and it would be filled to the brim with these big, amazing, thick, ripe watermelons. And so, of course, I don't know his name, never knew it, but we called him the Watermelon Man. So,
Yes.
for public relations, well, let's start with marketing. So, marketing,
Uh-huh.
he would come and drive his truck, and we would know because here he comes shouting, I have these amazing watermelons. I had a great crop this year. Look at these amazing watermelons. And that is marketing. He would be selling us a product, introducing us to a product that we wanted or didn't know we wanted, but then we absolutely needed once he introduced it to us. So that's
Right.
kind of marketing, when you have a product and you are introducing it to the world, to a public that may or may not know they need it, but they actually want it then. So
Right.
that would be the marketing. So he'd drive up in the marketing. But for advertising, that this watermelon man may, for instance, put up a sign and say, watermelons here tomorrow. Or he would simply shout, we'd hear him from the hinterlands, watermelon, watermelon, here he comes. So that's advertising, just introducing, letting people know in your face, here it is, here's my product and here's my service.
Right.
Buy it today. So, and then comes perhaps public relations. So what if one of the neighbors bought one of the watermelons and said, "Oh my gosh, this is delicious! I'm going to serve this at my tea party next week." Well, in 2 days. So she would run and tell all the neighbors, "This watermelon is the most amazing, sweetest watermelon. You have to buy from him when he comes around tomorrow." That's public relations. It's a third party interest in third party objective opinion, trying to convince others, your public,
Right.
to buy from you. So that's kind of PR. And then we get to branding. So branding is what we talked about at the top of the show, and that is having other people truly, really understand, know what you want, and know that this product is amazing, and that you represent this, his reputation precedes him. And that's pretty much what branding is. That's what I'm saying. Branding
Right.
is your reputation. So we all knew that when he came around, we were going to get the best, the sweetest, the biggest watermelons around. So that's just a little summation of what each one is and how each one works. But
Right.
publicity is different altogether. So that would mean if a newspaper, for instance, got wind of this watermelon, or he won the state fair for his amazing watermelons and then put it in the paper. And that's when the media gets involved with publicity. But I think that the thing is, when business owners don't recognize that each one is distinctive, they're leaving one out, and they may not be able to actually get the help they need, because they may go to an advertising firm, which what they really need is marketing and introduce
Right.
them to the world, or any of those scenarios. So it's truly important for businesses to understand their business and what these four disciplines are and how they can help raise their recognition.
Absolutely. And not leave something out. Not leave something out of the mix, because that's where you don't want to do it. We had I met with a gentleman. I won't say what kind of industry he was in, but I met with a gentleman a couple of years ago, and I said, "So how are your reviews?" And he said, "I don't know. I don't care what people say about me." And I was shocked, honestly. I was shocked because I'm like, that is the most important thing. Really,
It is. A big-
it's the most important thing. If somebody says you're wonderful, that's great. But if they're out there saying, yeah, this is the worst whatever in the world, then you need to know that. You need to change that opinion. And you can't do that without knowing it.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Well, and the world is different these days, right? We have, it used to be, I was thinking about Mad Men, and they'd have the focus groups, and they'd have the people sitting on one side of the window, the other guy sitting on the other side of the window trying on different lipsticks. And they could see, well, what are they thinking? How are they feeling? What is going on? We don't need that anymore. We don't have to work
Right.
with focus group. We can see what's going on social media. How are people interacting with us? How are people leaving reviews? And not just social media. What are people in your community saying?
Yes.
Those things all matter.
One of the reasons why public relations is such a serious discipline, because it's not just an art, it's a science as well, because you need to look at those numbers and adjust them to how your product is going to appeal to the world. Because so many people give public relations such a bad reputation itself. I think the industry itself, it still needs to work on its reputation, because people think of it as, well, it's public relations is kind of a squeaky, oily kind of thing that you're just trying to change my mind in an unsavory way.
Right.
But it's important. It's important that we
Right.
know what our publics want and analyze those public opinions and make adjustments.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So tell me, what are the 4 steps that you need to incorporate for a public relations strategy? Because that is the thing. You can't just throw this stuff out there. There has to be a strategy. So what are the 4 steps?
Absolutely. And there is an acronym for it, and it's RPIE. Think of,
Okay.
everybody gets pie. It's ours, but it's the letters RPIE, and that stands
Okay.
for research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And all of these things are important in you. Once you decide that you're going to put out a strategy to promote a product or service, all of these elements must be taken into account. So as you mentioned, right on the head, research. And we used to do focus groups, and I think there is still a place for focus groups depending on what your product or service is. But that does cost a lot of money, bringing in people and trying to ensure that the groups, people that you are having to focus on your product or service, are representative of the title, the whole population that you're after. So they have to be sought out as gingerly as possible. So that takes some science and money to bring them in and put them in a cloistered environment. So a lot of us don't use so much focus groups anymore, and we don't have to, because we can do polls on social media. You can do polls
Right.
on any of the social media accounts, platforms out there, and they
Right.
give you the opportunity to get a pulse of what people think about that product or service. And so,
Well, and you can use your analytics to see. So I use this example a lot with clients because they'll say to me, "Oh, no. I know absolutely who my clients are. I know totally who my target market is." And I'm like, "How do you know this?" And they're like, "Well," and they start going into it, and you're like, "Wait a second." And so I share the story a lot. I started a blog years ago, I think 2007, and it was about running. And I am a mom. And at the time, I was in my early 40s, and I'm like, I'm a mom in my early 40s writing about the mental side of running. So my target audience, other moms in their 40s, and who run. And turned out that my target audience, the people who were actually reading my blog, it was almost 60% men. And I had no idea. And so paying attention to it
yeah,
let me change the way I wrote. It let me change the way I was speaking, because before, almost every article was saying, as a mom, blah, 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 right? Well, maybe I changed that as a runner. And just paying attention to who was reading it, who was out there. It does make a huge difference to know those things.
Perfect. Because yes, you were the anomaly. Not that many moms want to get out there and run. So
Right, exactly, or have time.
exactly. That's the key.
So, yeah, exactly. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about planning then.
So planning is one of those things again that people don't really like to do because it's always in the too hard to do box. But it's important because it gives you an opportunity to take a look at your competition, and that's it. You have to think about those goals, and if you have an objective, first the goal, then the objective, then the task. And without those clear goals, those SMART goals in place, you won't be able to understand where you're going with what you're trying to build. And
Right.
people don't know what a SMART goal is. That's another acronym for having it be what is SMART. Oh my gosh, it says
I can't believe you put yourself in that position because I was like, oh, I was going to say something, but I'm like, I don't remember. So you keep talking
it is
about planning. And
a goal that is you spell it out. Oh my gosh,
we're going to find it. Give me 1 second. We have got it right here. So specific,
there we go. Thank you.
measurable, attainable, relatable, and time bound.
Yes. So
Yes.
those are the things that make a goal actually something that you're going to actually achieve. And that is, so if you have a goal for your business that you want to grow your clientele, and so how can you do that? And most people start with the best way to do it is establishing a database with your customer base and with email marketing. So
Right.
a goal may be to use email marketing, but then you have to further break that down into the appropriate tasks, which would be to write the blog every week, send out the email marketing to all of those people within your database every week,
Right.
respond to them. So everything starts with the overarching goal, then the objectives, and then breaking them down into the intricate tasks that can be then measurable and attainable.
Absolutely. And I want to say this, I'll give an example. So my mom had heart surgery a few years ago, and when she had her heart surgery, my sister went into my mom's house and she cleaned out all the junk food and bought a ton of vegetables and put them in her fridge. And that lasted for about a week because she completely changed everything. So I want to say, as a small business owner, I know we're busy. And the idea that we think about it and we're like, oh, this is a big plan. We have to do a big thing and we have to change everything. You don't. Start small. Come up with something. So just think about the fact that you're planning. We're coming on the end of the year, right? What are you going to do next year? And go through, let's think if you are a plumbing company. In January, what do you get? You get a lot of frozen pipes, right? So what is your plan going to be to reach the people with those frozen pipes? What is the plan going to be to helping people with that part? What happens in February? Well, a couple of things happen in February. You still have cold weather. You still have things, maybe things are starting to thaw if you're a little further south, but also you have Valentine's Day. Are you going to do anything special on Valentine's Day for your people? So think through each of the months, and really you can start with a spreadsheet for this. And then the other thing so my other part of the tip is you said every week, right? And that's the thing that scares people. What if you schedule it?
Right. So there was a book I read last year that was just amazing to me, and it keeps you grounded and it helps you, stops you from being overwhelmed. And that's Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read that one?
Yes, I have. I love that one.
So he's phenomenal with that, and it just puts you back into a place that you don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to clear that refrigerator. You can just throw away that one bag of cookies, or don't.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe one cookie per day is whatever you're going to get you one step farther. So it's
exactly
making those small changes are can be widely astronomical in the end. So 1% of a change can amount to a 100% change at the end of the year.
Absolutely. Well, and I talk to my clients a lot about what if you just sat down, if you said, okay, we're in December now or almost in December, and next year I want to send out an email every month. Well, they'll say to me, I don't have time every month to do that. So I say, well, okay, let's do that plan. What emails would you send out if you were going to send them out? You don't have to commit to sending them out, but if you were, which ones would you send out? And they'll come up with a list. I'm like, okay, so what if you spent this weekend creating 12 emails and scheduling them to go out so you don't even have to think about it.
Yes.
And that's when they have this aha moment and they go, oh, okay, planning isn't that hard.
It's true, because we all have those phases where we have just an overwhelming amount of creativity and insight. And when you actually sit down and focus, all those ideas come. It's when you put yourself in a position that you have to, you're stressed about it, and like, oh no, I have to post something today, and nothing comes. But
absolutely,
give yourself that quiet time. You may be on a Saturday morning or Sunday night, whatever works best for you, and do that pre-planning for your social media posts. And
absolutely,
I wrote a blog about that once. I called it meal prepping your social media. And
there you go.
In the same kind of concept.
Absolutely. And then they'll say, one of the things they'll say, well, but what if I change my plans? And I'm like, but Christmas is still going to be there, right? So you're still going to have to send that. So if you change your plans, add another one. It's not going to hurt anything, but then you are being consistent. You've got it set up consistently.
And that's one of the things, because our world is so volatile and you never know what's going to happen. So you can't put out a happy post if something in the world is happening that's egregious or unsettling.
Right.
So that makes you look unsympathetic to what's going on.
Exactly.
You have to be open, and that's why I really don't like those pre-planned, unmovable posting platforms. They work for some people, but I'd rather be able to post and know what I'm going to post, and not be at the mercy of having something go out there that's insensitive to what's going on in the world. So
right. Well, yes. And I do think people should use the schedulers, because I think it's very hard if they don't. If they have to wake up every morning and think about it, forget about it. They're not going to do it.
But they do have the option that you can make sure
change it
or approve it before it goes out.
And exactly.
That's best.
Absolutely. And then so we kind of started talking about implementation. So this is part of the implementation. So but you talk a little bit more about what it is. How do you implement these plans?
That is having a schedule and ensuring knowing what your end result will be, and plotting that schedule, whether it's going to be a week long, if you're planning a strategy, a campaign that's going to be a month long. You know what the end result is, and then you backward plan. So what
right.
do you do on week 1, week 2, and all the way up until, and you put, I like to make a diagram, a spreadsheet, and actually catalog what is going to happen on those certain days to keep everyone on the same page if you're working with a team. So
right.
That is so at the end what's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, and how many people, I have to tell you, the number of people who are calling me right now for their Christmas campaigns.
Yes.
It's just so late for your Christmas campaigns. We should have started much earlier. We can do stuff with it, but if you know in January that next year you want to start your Christmas campaign in November, you can start planning that now. It makes your life so much easier. If you know that you have an event in May, which actually we have an event in May, we start planning for that event now. And by January, we have things already enrolling for it. So that's important to have.
Yes. And then you can, the whole process into place. You know that you can research what your competitors are doing. You can know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You can plan it out. So that's one of the things that we love to do at True PR is put together strategic plans, because you're so right. It's too late now. Now we're on the downward slide, and anything you do now may come across as looking last minute or rushed or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk. Actually, we have a comment. So James Bonato said, if I were to create a blog on my site, how much planning does it require? So I don't want to start one if I have to dedicate a lot of time, 1 hour a week, 2, 4. So let's talk a little bit about, because blogs are a great form of PR, really, of marketing, of branding.
It's the best because, just quickly, if you look at the shelf life of social media, so Facebook is up there, but I think it starts with a chat, a Snapchat. A snap lasts about 10 seconds, and then it's gone, and then it goes down. So a tweet lasts about 8 minutes. Facebook posts last maybe a day. And I'm just paraphrasing. Depending on the interaction and the engagement you get, they may last longer. But at the very bottom, blogs have the longest shelf life.
Right.
And pins. For Pinterest is another great platform because pins last for years and years. But for blogs, they're such an amazing platform because you're able to write in those keywords, and people can Google your blog and find you in years to come. So it's as long as you're writing something that's evergreen, something that's going to help your audience, that will be relevant in a month, in 2 years. So absolutely use blogs. They're one of the best platforms to promote your business and your services, and for
absolutely.
But to answer James's question, there's never a wrong time to start a blog. Perhaps you can build up some momentum and excitement about it and start posting that my blog is coming next month, and this will give you time to plan what your themes will be. And just as we talked about earlier, put together a planning calendar to take advantage of the themes of the month, or every day has a certain a theme. Today may be National wear a silver earring day. Who knows?
Right. Right. Exactly.
You look at those calendars and plan far enough ahead, because I know James is a videographer as I am, and so there are so many days that are devoted to either photography, videography. There's a National Smile Day. You can incorporate all of those ideas into a upcoming blog posts, and then promote your business and help your audience as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and so to further answer that, he said, how much time? And I will tell you, people get really worried about it. And there's a writer's trick that you need to know. The writer's trick is that when you sit down and you start writing, the next idea is going to come. Just schedule the time so that, I used to do all of my blog writing on a Sunday. I would spend almost all day on Sunday writing. And part of it was that I knew if I sat down and wrote one blog in the morning, another idea was going to come, and I'm going to write that one too. And then I'm going to write the next one.
The walls come down, the floodgates open, and all of those ideas come. All you have to do is put pen to paper. Some people prefer writing on paper, and I think the psychologists recommend that that's where your best ideas come from, if you're physically writing on paper. But also because I have published a fiction novel, I'm a writer as well. But I think my mojo comes right from my head to my fingers to the keyboard, and I go into it. So you just have to find out what works best for you. But as you said, the key is to set that time aside and be dedicated and sit down and write. And the ideas will come.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll tell you the other thing. So 2 other places. Well, 3 other places. Your showering, the ideas are going to come in there. When you're driving, they're definitely going to come there. But the other is if you're walking or running, those ideas come when you're moving. And so do feel like, do implement those sorts of things in to start coming up with the ideas, and make sure you have a phone or something that you could say, hey, I'm going to write about this.
So as a PR person, as a writer, I have to plug Stephen King's book on writing.
On writing.
His memoir. And, that's pretty much the template that he follows every day. He gets up, he walks first thing, and then is where the ideas come, and then he goes back and writes every day. But that's one of the books that I love to read at least once a year for inspiration.
Yes.
And Stephen King is amazing. He is.
So I have to tell you, when we go to Maine, we walk down a road that I absolutely know Stephen King has walked down, only because as you're walking down, there's every house or every cabin that's there has a name, a last name. And every single cabin on that road, the last name has been in one of his books.
Amazing.
So I know that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. So when we talk about evaluation, what are we talking about there?
We're talking about taking those finding out what I'm losing all of my words.
Analytics. Right? Analytics. There you go.
So finding the analytics to determine what worked for you and what did not. So you can't just do a campaign and say, oh, it's over, and forget about it. But the key is to look at what worked, look at the analytics, look at the numbers, look at the comments you got from people, what resonated with them and what didn't, and take the best and go with that, and learn from what did not work, and actually analyze it. Take time, talk to your team. What can we do better next time? What really worked this time that we want to continue to keep in our processes?
Right. Well, it's for me, I would write a blog post. Back in the day, I would write this blog post and I would think, this is the worst thing I ever did. Well, if I went strictly on how I felt, I would have never shared that blog post again. I'd have never written anything similar to it. I would have never done that. But those posts that I created that I was like, this is awful, this is the worst thing I ever wrote, those would usually do wonderfully. And I don't know why.
We are our own worst critics. And then
exactly.
So it's the post I write, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm saying something that's so insightful. This is going to change the world, and not one comment.
Right.
And then I write something that I think is pretty basic, and everyone loves it. So you just never know.
You don't know, except if you watch your analytics. If you're paying attention to your analytics, it makes a world of difference. I wrote a post recently about those Google scams, the ones where somebody calls and says, you're not listed on Google. And you are, but you're like, but I know I am, right? Because I am a digital marketing agency, but I get these calls 10 times a week. And so I wrote a whole post about that. That is my highest ranking post. And it is by far my highest ranking post. And I thought, isn't that just a simple thing to be writing about? That's not something everybody knows it's a scam, but
it's because
people are reading it
with it. And
exactly.
So many of us. So yes, we
absolutely. So, all right. Thank you. This has been really great. Before you go, I do want to give you a chance. You talked about Atomic Habits. Are there any other books that and Own Writing, we're going to put both of those up in the show notes. Own Writing is one of my favorites as well. Are there any other books you want to recommend?
So for a lot of us out there that really want to promote ourselves in the press and become subject matter experts, I think one of the best books I read last year was a book called Make It Rain. It's by Ariva Martin, and she talks about, Make It Rain is the main title, but the subtitle is how to make yourself more approachable in the media and branding techniques.
Okay.
That is primo book for actually taking yourself and your product, your service through a branding process and making yourself more appealing for the press, for producers to bring you on their talk shows.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to look that up because I haven't read it. So I have read Own Writing and Atomic Habits. The other one that I thought you were probably going to say, because it seems right up your alley, is The Tipping Point. That one's one of my favorites too.
I've read that. That's right on the shelf. I haven't
read
the first came out. I love Malcolm Gladwell. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
the other favorite book I have is I just finished the Success Habits.
Oh, yes.
Why am I forgetting everyone's name? But it's 67 Success Habits, and I just finished listening to it on audio, and
Okay.
I'm going to start again.
You're going to listen to it again?
By Jack Canfield. Heavens to Beth.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think I have that sitting on my desk.
So and that's what he recommends. He says, it's a thick, huge, long book, right? So
right.
there's principles, and I finished it completely, and I'm going to start back and do each one of them. Spend a week really living through and studying and each principle in its own right, and of course,
absolutely,
taking responsibility for all of your actions. Everything you have created in your world, your life is because of your choices and
right.
your decisions. So that's principle number one. Always take responsibility for what you've created and you've built.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So how do people get in touch with you? I know they can go to trooppr.com.
Absolutely.
But how about social media? How can they find you on social media?
So I'm on every social media platform. My Facebook page is Troop PR, as well as I think I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and that's my full name, at Pamela Hartvines. And then Twitter is at Troop PR.
Okay. Awesome. Well,
of course, if you Google my name, Pamela Vines, I show up everywhere. YouTube, Vimeo. I'm on every social media platform.
That's great. Which is where, some people will say, oh, you shouldn't be there. And I want to give, you've heard me give this example before. If you're not, you're missing people. Doesn't mean you have to spend, Twitter is really my favorite place. I spend a ton of time there. I don't spend as much time on the other platforms, but I am there. So if you want to tag me, if you want to say something to me, you can reach me on any of those platforms. And that's what you want to be. If somebody comes into your restaurant and you're like, well, I'm only on Facebook and Twitter, and they take a picture of their food and they want to post a picture of their food on their Instagram page, and they can't tag you, you've just missed something great. You've missed a great opportunity. So yeah, it's really important.
Remember, on the flip side of that, remember what happened to Crockpot when they did not have a Twitter account, and when This Is Us had the episode where Jack, because of the Crockpot, and everybody was on Twitter and blasting Crockpot, they weren't there. So they weren't in conversation to defend their name, and it's a huge opportunity.
That's great. No, and I missed that. I do remember the episode, but I missed all of that. So I don't know how I did that. But yes, it is so important that you're there. And again, because you want to be listening. What are people saying about you? What are people saying about your brand? And if it's great, that's wonderful. And if it's bad, you need to respond. And the bigger brands are doing that. The smaller brands, you can do that too. It's really, it's really important. So, all right, let everybody know what's coming up next. I'll be right back to you. Give me 1 second. All right, Wednesday, we have Mia Hewitt. She's going to talk about letting go of fear. Actually, I'm hoping that while we talk, we can talk a little bit about the one word. If you have not chosen your one word for next year, I'm going to give you a basic description of it. Instead of coming up with a resolution for next year, think about creating one word. I spend a lot of time thinking about this. I pray about it. I walk and I think, what is my one word going to be next year? And recently it was fearless. And that was really, really hugely helpful to me. So I love that she's doing letting go of fear. And I hope we'll talk a little bit about that one word as well. I want to remind you to subscribe. You can subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. It's very, very helpful to me. We are a small business, and we are doing the podcast as a means to get other small businesses in front of people, but also as a means of helping you as an entrepreneur. So please do subscribe. I would especially ask that you subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/BrennanAnnie, because otherwise my kids will continue to think I'm a nerd until I hit 1,000, and then they'll think I'm the most wonderful thing that ever existed. So help me become the most wonderful thing that ever existed by getting me to 1,000 subscribers over there. All right, I'm going to come back. Pamela, thank you. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
This is great. All right, guys, we will see you Wednesday. And Pamela, you stick around.